Puerto Rico's in the middle of a housing crisis, and locals are worried that it could turn into the next Hawaii, pricing them out of their own homes and communities. But what if I told you the locals are already fighting back? They're taking control, solving the housing crisis, and building wealth through real estate. I've personally helped facilitate many of these deals, and in this video, I'll be breaking down all of the steps about how you can do the same, even if you've got no experience and you're just starting out. In our last video, we explored how locals are using Act 182 to create housing to solve the housing crisis. Hey, if you haven't seen that video, check it out after this one. It's a good one. And today we're going to dive deeper. We're going to give you the way, the why. We're going to make it more practical for you. If you've been watching from the sidelines and wondering where do I start, this is your blueprint. Step 1, identify opportunities. And guys, they're everywhere. You can easily start with your community, your neighborhood, and look for vacant and distressed and unused properties. When you're driving around the neighborhood looking for deals, you're looking for houses that need repairs. You want to look for sale by owner signs. I like to look for on-market stuff too, so I don't mind calling the realtors. Basically anything that's for sale could be an opportunity. If you as a real estate investor, you want to call as many of these as you possibly can. As a local, you could also visit the property records office or talk to community leaders who can turn you on to potential leads. Step 2, guys. Reach out to owners. Reach out to people who are off of the island but have properties on the island. They've forgotten about them. They've left them. They're abandoned. They're zombie houses. People often ask me once I reach out to them, how do I talk to these people? Here's a simple script. Say this. Hey, I'm a local real estate investor and I'm interested in your property. And I'd like to discuss with you how we can come up with a win-win scenario. It's as simple as that. Guys, you can do it in Spanish too, if that's your local language. There's a couple of ways to find contact info for these sellers who've abandoned the island, who've left their properties behind to rot and become a dangerous eyesore. How can you do that? Well, the first way, the one that we use most often and are most successful with, is simply by talking to neighbors. Normally, there's a neighbor who will be looking at you, looking at the house and wondering, what the hell are you doing there? And ask them the question, hey, who owns this disaster of a house? How can I get a hold of him? Do you have a key to the house? Can we go inside it? That neighbor who's looking at you will often know who left the house, where they're at, and how to get a hold of them. If that doesn't work, you can try the property registry or the CRIM. The CRIM is the taxes. The property registry is called Registro de la Propiedad. Oh my God, next year, I'm gonna learn to speak Spanish better, guys, I'm sorry.
I believe that every man, woman, and child in this country should learn how to speak Spanish. And this would be a healing thing for all of North America.
Buenos dias, Jaime.
Buenos días, Miguel. ¿Cómo está? ¿Bien? Claro que sí. Yo soy fantástico. ¿Qué pasa?
The CRIM can have some owner information, so can the registry of the properties. Don't expect to find everything a whole lot of times. Many times these abandoned zombie houses are owned by deceased people and then all of their heirs, and it gets very difficult to track them down. So that's why we prefer to find somebody who is in contact with them, a neighbor. That's generally been the easiest way for us. And again, we're not locals, so I don't speak the language all that well, but when we've been successful on finding people who have left their properties behind and moved over to the mainland, we've done it by talking to the neighbors most of the time. Let's talk about step number 3. Analyzing the deal. Here are the things that I look for when I'm trying to determine if something is a deal. Number 1, price. We want to know what we can buy it for. Number 2, how much work does it need? So a renovation estimate. Number 3, market rents. I like to know what are the market rents. And number 4, I like to know what it's going to be worth after it's repaired. So I can buy it for X, I can renovate it for Y, and when I'm done with it, it's going to be worth $1 million. Wow. All right.
I mean, it's all right, like...
Let's assume that you're just starting out and you've never done this before. How do you figure out if something is a good deal? You know what the seller is asking, and maybe that's a good deal, maybe that's not a good deal. But what you want to find out is how much is it going to cost to fix it, and what's it going to be worth after it's fixed? So let's say the seller's asking $100,000 and you determine that it needs $50,000 to repair it. How do you know if that's a good deal? You're going to want that property to be worth 130% more than the $150,000 that you're all in for. So we call that the 70% rule. So basically we go backwards and we take the after repaired value, we subtract out the purchase price, and then we subtract out renovation costs. That'll give you your all-in price. You want to multiply that after repaired value times 70%. That's the maximum allowable that you're going to want to be into it for. So that means that you have to buy it for less than that so that you can include the renovation costs in it. I've got other content on this that you can also check out. Subscribe to the channel, guys. If you like this kind of real estate investing content and you want to learn more, We've got tons of content out there that can help you to do it. We've even got a free school community. Links in the description for that too. How do you figure out what's the after repaired value? You've never done this before. I get it. You need to know. Here's the way we did it when we first came to the island. You could do this if you'd like. We called up local realtors who were selling things in the neighborhoods that we were interested in, and we asked them to give us a comparative market analysis. So it might look like this. Hey, Mr. Realtor, I see that you're selling this house over on this street. I'm looking at buying this house 2 streets over, and I'm buying it for X, going to put Y in it. What would you be able to sell it for me for after the repairs? And they will go then do what's called a comparative market analysis, and they'll give you a report. It's super easy. All you've probably got to do is promise them the back-end listing. They won't even charge you for this. So they'll go and run the comps in the neighborhood and tell you, hey, that house is going to sell for $290,000 once it's in good shape. And there you go. You've got your after repaired value. This stuff really isn't difficult, guys. Remember this. Do the next most important thing. What's the next most important step that I can take? First, we find something that's for sale. Then we try to figure out what it's going to cost to renovate it. Then we're looking at how do we start to make an offer, so we need to know what the after repaired value is. So there you go. You just start doing these steps. You don't have to have it all figured out before you get started. Just get started. I'm going to give you a couple of more steps, and by the end, I'm going to show you how you can make a whole bunch of money and put local families back in these homes. So step number 4 is actually making the offer. On the island of Puerto Rico, there's not a standardized contract. In Florida, we've got one called the FAR bar, but you don't have that here. So what we like to do is a letter of intent, or LOI. And that will spell out what your offer is. You can do it through an email. You can do it through a text. You could even do it verbally, but we like to have it in writing. So basically, my letter of intent would say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm willing to pay you X. I'm willing to give you this amount of money down. I need an inspection period for this amount of time. Why do I need an inspection period? Because you want to make sure that you've done all of your homework and that you got all of your numbers right before you commit to purchasing it. How much money is it that you're going to put down as a deposit? You want to tell them how much money you're going to put down as a deposit, because if you leave it to them, they're going to ask you for a whole bunch of money, and you don't want to do that. You want to give them 500 or 1,000 or maybe up to a couple of $1,000, and you want to set those terms. How long is it going to take us to close? So if it's a cash deal on the island of Puerto Rico, maybe 30 days you could do, 30 to 45 days. If it's a finance deal, 45 days. If you're looking at the bank, 45 days is like the fastest that it could be. So you want to make sure that your offers inside your letter of intent let people know what kind of offer you're making. Is it a cash deal? Is it a finance deal? And how much time do you need to close? Once they've accepted your LOI, your letter of intent, you can then send that off to the closing attorney and ask them to paper it up. They'll create a contract for you, and they'll do that as part of their services so that they can get the closing. I don't want it to sound super difficult, guys. What's most important, again, is that you get started. You start looking at the real estate. You start talking to the sellers. You start talking to the realtors. Just get out there and do the things that you can do, the easy stuff. Now you've got your contract and you're ready to buy the property. If it needs a whole bunch of work, you're going to need to figure out how to get the money and close on it and renovate it. We've got other content on that can help you out as well, so you can watch that after this. But let's assume you get through all of that, or you're buying something that you're able to sell on to the next person, and now you're looking for a family, a local family who's going to call the place home. We like to sell to the local population using FHA loans, and guys, there's a cherry on top that I'm going to tell you in just a minute. So not only does the island of Puerto Rico have all of the conventional loans for homeowners, like FHA, like VA, like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, all of the stuff that everybody's familiar with all over the country happens here on the island as well. These programs are great for first-time home buyers. And because Puerto Rico is often hit with hurricanes, has earthquakes, and we did also go through the big flu, there are vouchers on the island that are here to help locals. So if your house was damaged through the hurricane, or because of an earthquake, or if you were affected by COVID and maybe you were laid off, you can get these vouchers from the CBDG, Community Development Block Grants. And these are for disaster recovery. They provide financial aid for first-time home buyers, and they're meant to help to cover down payments and closing costs. These funds can be from $45,000 and up. And if you're a member of the Critical Recovery Force, like law enforcement, or you're a nurse or a doctor, you can get $55,000 for qualified households. Guys, these are government programs that the buyer will need to jump through those hoops. The buyer will need to get that voucher. You, as the real estate investor, you'd like to find people with these vouchers because it will make it much easier for them to buy your house. Then you can connect them with a mortgage broker who will get them an FHA loan. They can use their vouchers as their down payment. There's even an additional $5,000 available if you buy in urban centers. Guys, these are funds that have been set aside because of the natural disasters They're available to you if you are a local and you were affected by these natural disasters. You know who they're not available to? They're not available to people who are moving to the island. So all of you complainers out there, this is something that's just for the local population. This is specifically to help people get back into houses, and they need houses that qualify. They also need sellers that are willing to take these vouchers, because here's why. If you're selling a property to someone using a voucher, expect the timeline to go longer. If it was going to take 45 days, now it's probably going to take 90 days. And guys, that's being conservative. These things take time. Any time in the past where we've used down payment assistance from the government, it has always significantly added to the length of time that it takes to close a deal. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm just telling you that as a real estate investor who's going to provide houses to the locals, if you want to allow them to use the vouchers, add it into the back end of how long it's going to take you to do your deal. Think of it like this. If you qualify for an FHA loan, you probably qualify for the voucher as long as you meet all of the other requirements. Hey guys, don't ask me the details about these vouchers or this voucher system. This is a local program. I'm not that familiar with it, so we could talk about it inside of the comments, but I'm not the expert on this, guys. There are realtors out there, especially in Apex, who are experts in this. So if you want to get more information, you can join our paid community on School. The link's in the description. Come in there and talk to the guys who know their stuff about these vouchers and the voucher systems and how you can use them to be a profitable real estate investor. Here's what I know. Nearly 7,000 families have already used this program to become homeowners. So if you're watching this video, you're a first-time home buyer, you were affected by these storms, you're living on the island of Puerto Rico, check it out. Go see if you qualify. This is talking about $45,000, $50,000 that you can get that'll help you to buy a home. Here's how I see these programs doubling up and maybe working well for you, the real estate investor who would qualify for these vouchers as well. Consider buying a 1 to 4 family home, getting yourself an FHA loan, or maybe you qualify for a VA loan and you can use these down payment assistance vouchers as part of your capital stack. Get into the property, live in one portion of it, rent out the rest of it. House hack this, baby. Guys, this is a great way to become a real estate investor. And in my example, you're providing a solution to the problem and providing housing to at least 2 families, maybe 3, maybe even 4 families. Your family and 2 or 3 others. What's better than that? Guys, what's stopping you from starting? If you want, drop your questions in the comments and I'll cover them in my next video. You better subscribe for that. We've got resources for you guys who are thinking of becoming real estate investors, or maybe you want to learn more about these voucher programs. Join us on the School platform. The link's in the description for the Flip Flop Flipper community. It's free. For those of you that really want to become real estate investors and you want to kick it up a notch, we've got a paid community in there. It's called Apex. Inside of Apex, we're actually doing deals with members of Apex. So if you want to have more access to myself and my team, consider joining Apex. It's only like $97 a month right now, guys. It's amazing. Locals like you have the power to turn Puerto Rico's housing crisis into an opportunity, not just for yourselves, but for your communities as well. You don't need to wait for someone to save the island. You are the solution. So start right now. Take action.